I know movies like this aren't for everyone. They're sick, I get that, I admit that. But I still kind of like them anyway, partly because they belittle and make fun of Nazis, which is the second best thing you can do to them. It's especially fun because it bothers them so much. Authoritarians and fascists hate being made fun of. I mean, look at the way China censors images of Winnie the Pooh, or look at my comment section every time I make fun of Republicans. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Love Camp 7 from 1969. This is yet another collaboration between director Lee Frost and writer Bob Cresse. I've talked about both of them on the channel before, most recently with the Western roughie Hotspur. This movie is rather infamous. It's not the first Nazi-themed exploitation film, but it was the first one to be a full-blown sexploitation film. And it's probably the film responsible for revitalizing interest in the women in prison genre, which was a staple of 70s exploitation, thanks in large part to Roger Corman. Further, this film also made the UK's infamous Video Nasties list. In fact, unlike most of the films on that list, it's still banned in the UK today. So, looks like we're in for a nasty treat. Let's check it out. We open on some men in London making a deal of some sort. The British guy was some sort of war hero, and he's going to tell us a story of his war days. And then we flash back. A recently dead German engineer developed a new kind of jet engine. His assistant, a Jewish woman, now without his protection, was sent to a camp. A camp that provides vacationing German officers, female attention. A love camp. And these camps were real, by the way. In German, they're called Lagerbordell, which is camp bordellos, or sometimes Freudenabteilungen, which literally would be pleasure departments. In English, that's sometimes translated as joy divisions, and yeah, that's where the band got its name. Anyway, back to the movie. The Allies make a plan to place 2 of their own women in the camp in order to make contact with that engineer and help her escape. Oh, and one of those women is the lovely Maria Lease. It's been a while since she's been on the channel. The last time was way back in 2024 in Vibrations. And the other woman is Kathy Williams. Been even longer since she's been on the channel. We last saw her in Sisters in Leather. The plan is for them to parachute in, make contact with the resistance, and then get purposefully arrested to be sent to the camp. Things go pretty well, they parachute in, and we don't see that because it's a very low-budget movie, but then the resistance debriefs them, and then they debriefs themselves so that they can get into their costumes. Naturally, I can't show you that part.
Man, I just work here.
But of course, we don't have to stay here. You can now support the channel on Patreon and get access to spicy versions of my reviews. Link is in the description. So the plan works, and the ladies make it to Love Camp 7. An officer welcomes them. That's Bob Cresse, by the way. We last saw him here in drag as Granny Good in The House on Bear Mountain, which was the first film directed by Lee Frost, by the way. The intake process is similar to the intake process of most women in prison films: the hose, and then strip for a medical exam. So the ladies settle in, but they do get into a little trouble when Maria Lease helps one of the girls who was being tortured. Their punishment involves all the ladies in the barracks stripping and being forced to hold up buckets, which honestly is pretty boring, but it's still way too spicy for YouTube, so let's just go on.
No fair.
The new girls, our girls, get put through their paces. One of the guards doing the pacing is Bruce Kimball. We last saw him on the channel in Midnight Plowboy. And the other one is an uncredited Wes Bishop. He was last on the channel in Hotspur. In this movie, he isn't a fan of what the camp is doing and would like to be transferred out. But his boss denies that transfer. And it turns out the women that our gals are looking for isn't in the barracks. It seems she was transferred to a detention center because she was sick, and then the idea is she'll either get better in the detention center or die. So that puts a kink into their plan. The plan is further kinked when Maria Lease refuses the advances of an officer. This gets her transferred to the detention center where she receives a beating. And I can't show you any of this beating scene with Maria Lease, although it is the highlight of the film. On a completely unrelated note, I will say that there's something cool about the combination of rope and water balloons. I mean, Doesn't that look cool? See how it hangs like that when it's suspended by the ropes? Yeah, I kind of wish I had 2 of them. Anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with the movie, of course.
Oh, sure.
But as luck would have it, the woman that she's been looking for is there with her. So I guess there was maybe intentional that she would refuse the advances and then get sent to this place. So the camp gets visited by a general who informs Bob Cresse that the camp will host a very important person for a kind of party. So will the girls manage to save that engineer and escape? Will this big party somehow make that more difficult? Well, that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Release. It would be hard. So very hard to put together a top 5 or even a top 10 list of my favorite sexploitation stars, although Maria Lease would be near the top of any such list I might write.
She gives me a very strange, very new elation.
She was amazingly beautiful. Beyond her, this is a Lee Frost Bob Cresse film, so the script is a cut above most cheapo exploitation films. His films really have decently well-written stories, and that's no different here.
I personally appreciate an attempt at telling a story.
This is a women in prison film, so it's not exactly Shakespeare, but it's solid. And maybe because Bob Cresse wrote pretty strong scripts, Lee Frost managed to get pretty strong performances out of his actors. Bob Cresse was having a lot of fun here, for example. Wes Bishop is competent as usual. Finally, and no spoilers, but the last 10 minutes or so of this thing are pretty great. But despite the lovely ladies, the decent story, and the competent acting, the film's not perfect. Like a guard hanging some water balloons, this film has some shortcomings. Well, as much as I like Lee Frost as an exploitation filmmaker, I mean, some of his films count amongst my favorites, I don't think he's a great sexploitation filmmaker. His sexy stuff just isn't filmed or directed well enough to be erotic. There are exceptions, of course, like the rope and balloon scene in this movie, but as a general rule, the nudie sections of his films are rather dull. Lots of bodies pushed together and groping, but the camera doesn't show enough appreciation of those bodies. He's no Meyer, or Sarno, or Metzger, that's for sure. And this film is really rather tame with its torture elements, so it's definitely no Ilsa either. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure who this movie's made for. It's not really a horror film, so it's not for horror fans. It doesn't seem like it was trying to be sexy, so sexploitation fans might be disappointed. And it's not really a comedy, even though there is some pitch black humor here. I suppose more than anything, this just is an exercise in bad taste. And in that regard, it is successful. More than most of the movies on that list, this is a video nasty.